You are listening to Beyond the Wheel, a podcast about the people and ideas that drive the RV community forward.
Looking to get out there and stay out there? Battleborn Batteries lithium-ion batteries are here to power your RV, marine, and off-grid adventures. Designed as an easy drop-in replacement for traditional lead-acid batteries, these reliable solutions have 2 to 3 times the power, charge 5 times faster, are a fifth of the weight, and last 10 times longer. Offered in a variety of models in unique sizes and shapes, ranging from 50 amp hour to a robust 270 amp hour, and backed by a 10-year warranty. Battleborn batteries are built to fit your needs and power your experiences. On the road, on the water, and off the grid, reliable power is here. Check them out at battlebornbatteries.com.
Welcome back to Beyond the Wheel. In today's episode, we sit down with Michael Davis, the solo force behind Hard Impact Designs. Michael shares his journey from a routine 9-to-5 job to becoming an inventive entrepreneur who brought a game-changing idea to life, which is a multifunctional quick-release mount for rooftop tents. Born out of personal necessity and refined through testing, customer feedback, and hustle, Michael's mount has sped up installation of gear for outdoor adventurers. Michael also opens up about the challenges of running a business solo, from navigating the complex patent process to managing the demanding world of social media marketing. Whether you're an overland enthusiast, aspiring entrepreneur, or just curious about the grit it takes to bring an idea to life, this episode is full of practical lessons, honest reflections, and the kind of hustle that drives innovation in the outdoor gear world. So let's jump in.
Hey, Michael. Thanks for joining us today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at Hard Impact Designs?
Thank you, Sean and Kenny, for having me. I am Michael Davis. I'm a research attorney is my primary job from 9 to 5 that gets the bills paid right now. Father, enjoy being outdoors, obviously. And as far as Hard Impact Designs is concerned, I'm the owner of the business. I'm the CEO. Hard Impact Designs is me. I'm everything. Handle shipping, I'm the accountant, I'm everything.
Okay, Michael. Are you a one-man operation then, or do you have any help at all?
It's just me. Occasionally, the family helps out, but
okay.
It is just me.
Interesting. Very cool.
So how would you describe what you produce, what your product is?
So what I sell is a rooftop tent quick release mount. That was the sort of original intention anyway, was for rooftop tents. It's really turned into sort of a multi-function device to mount things to your roof rack. I use it to mount the tent, but also my recovery boards. I recently started using it to mount my road shower to the side of my tent. I have one of the clamshell aluminum tents, and I have channels in the side of that, right? I use them now to mount the road shower with the shower curtain over it. So yeah, it's really a sort of a multi-function quick release device.
I guess you're a camper yourself, or overlander, maybe a better term. Is this something that you designed for yourself at first and thought, well, this is working great for me, I can probably produce this and others could use it as well? Is that how it kind of got started?
Yes, Kenny, that's exactly what it was. I got to the point where I was really tired of using my rooftop tent just because the installation and removal was just so difficult. My truck was my daily driver, so when I'm not using it, I prefer to keep it in the garage until the tent needs to come off. At the time, I was living in Decatur, Georgia, and I think the last time I installed my tent, it took me almost 6 hours.
Wow.
All 8 bolts, installed. It's just that little quarter turn with a ratchet, right? And so I just didn't want to use the tent anymore. But a buddy of mine and I had a trip planned to the Outer Banks. Have you guys been to the Outer Banks?
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful, pristine. And to me, the rooftop tent is ideal sleeping setup for the beach. And so I wanted to mount the tent. But I didn't want to use those brackets or regular bolts. So I started searching online for a quick release mount, and I found one, ordered it, was very excited to unbox it. And as soon as I opened it, I realized that it wasn't compatible with my crossbars. I have a Pro Speed roof rack, and which is basically, it's very similar to Prinsu, Victory, all those different kind of racks with the 80-20 extrusion crossbars, right? So my options when I unboxed these mounts were to either drill a hole through my rack to my crossbars to mount those brackets, or to drill holes in their bracket and then bolt it to my crossbars. And I didn't want to do either one of those things. So that was what I said about designing these brackets that I have now.
So originally it was just a one-off design for you. And then did you find that it worked on other roof racks the same as yours, or did you have to go through like some design changes or anything like that to get it to be more functional?
No, I mean, I measured my channels and, kind of looked at some other just basic mounting options that were already available on the market to just kind of get an idea of the sizes. And those were fairly uniform and standard already because they were designed to be compatible with that 80/20 specifically. So I just started with that as the foundation as far as measurements and things like that. The first prototype was spec'd to work with the 80/20 extrusion specifically because that was my particular need. And eventually I introduced a lower bracket that was compatible with any crossbar that uses a single channel rack. So, Front Runner, Rhino rack, any of those crossbars. We have a lower that's compatible with that as well.
So for somebody listening, Michael, and they're like thinking about their own rack, and maybe they have a rack that you didn't mention right now, are they able to contact you, or can they just look on the website to see if their rack is compatible with your?
Yes, you can definitely go to my website. Hardimpactdesigns.com is the website. Again, hardimpactdesigns.com. And there is a list there in the description of some of the racks that these mounts are compatible with, the brackets are compatible with. Email me at michaeld@hardimpactdesigns.com if you have any questions. Again, that's michaeld@hardimpactdesigns. And I do my best to respond within 24 hours. There are some crossbars that I think are just wider than my bracket, but for the most part, there's pretty much I'm able to accommodate bed racks of any sort, or most crossbars.
Okay. Yeah, I've only messed with a rooftop tent one time. A friend of mine has a Jeep with a rooftop tent, and like you're saying, I could see where it took you 6 hours. It's not easy to get your hands, and he's got an awning on the side of his Jeep too. So my arms and hands do not bend in a way to get to those little tiny screws that are holding it in with a little ratchet or a open end wrench at even worse. I mean, you're spending a lot of time on a single screw and nut, and you got, what is it? Probably 8 of them around the rooftop. So this is making a lot of sense to me of why you would create something like this. This is a pain point for sure for other people that have roof racks. And when we were adjusting his, it wasn't even like we were removing his. We just wanted to slide it back a little bit because it was making a weird air tumble sound while he was driving the road. So we just wanted to move it a little bit. That took over an hour just to slide it back a little bit. We weren't even removing the thing. We were just adjusting it.
My biggest headache or obstacle at this point is pulling out the gantry that I had to build to lift my tent. Now I'm just like, I don't feel like that. But installing the tent is no big deal. And when I was in Atlanta, my son helped me install it. So we would just lift it up, put it on top of the truck, and drop the bracket, the upper on the lower, and that was it. Now installing that tent, like a 3-minute job. I mean, the first time that you get everything lined up, you'll have to like install your brackets and leave your bolts loose just to make sure that everything lines up, and then your pins will go through. But once you get everything torqued down, after that, it's just a simple matter of removing the pins and lifting your tent off or lowering your tent and inserting the pins. And yeah, it's a total game changer, especially like prepping for a trip. For me anyway, it's like there's a little bit of excitement involved, right? Like you're anticipating the adventure ahead and like trying to figure out the best way to make everything fit in the vehicle and what do I need and what don't I need and all that kind of stuff. And so like dealing with the tent kind of got in the way of that, but it was just a part of it. Now it's just like the tent really almost can be the last thing I do, right? But it's at the end of a trip that I appreciate it most. Because like I said, I like to keep my truck in the garage. So, if I've been gone for days or a week or whatever, a couple of weeks, and then usually at the end of that, you have a long drive to get back home, to be able to just pull some pins out and break down my truck, it's been a total game changer for me.
Yeah, that's great. That sounds great.
So the bracket itself stays on the roof rack?
Yeah, so the system,
Okay.
there are 4 parts to it. You've got a lower bracket that stays bolted to your crossbars, your roof rack. And that has like a hole that would run parallel to your bar that goes through kind of the side of that lower bracket. And then there's an upper bracket that bolts via an adapter, which is the third part of the kit. That adapter slides into your tent rail, and that's what your upper bracket bolts to. So now your upper bracket stays with your tent. And the pins are attached to that upper bracket via a lanyard.
Got
So
it.
that when you're ready to travel, you just drop your tent. Or, like I say, cargo boxes. I've got people who've purchased it to mount awnings. I use it for the road shower. Like, whatever it is you want to mount, just drop your stuff on the upper over the lower, push your pin through, and you're good to go.
Okay. This is actually better than I thought originally, Michael, because that means there's no loose parts floating around, right? You have the parts that stay on your vehicle, then you got the parts that stay on your roof, your rooftop tent or whatever it is that you're mounting, but there's no pieces in between that are just floating around that you got to go searching for or a possibility to lose.
There is one piece that you have to keep track of. So there's an option, like in a set of, I sell these in sets of 4 or 2, or really however you want to make it up, we'll work it out. But say you want to mount your rooftop tent, you're going to need at least 4 for that setup, right? 2 in the front, 2 in the back.
Mm-hmm.
Some folks are concerned about security. So in a normal set of 4, there'll be 4 push pins, right? The lock ball pins that are all just based around a plunger, basically. But if you are concerned about security, I can sell you one of those pins that locks with a key. That one does not have a hole that allows it to be attached via a lanyard to the upper bracket. So you'll have to keep track of that and the keys that are with it.
Okay. But I could see that being maybe a peace of mind for some people, depending on where they're storing a vehicle or camping, and then you go for a hike. You want to make sure that it's still there when you return.
Absolutely. When I introduced this, I was not thinking about theft. So the introduction happened at Overland East, and the response was phenomenal, right? But that was one question that kept coming up. Like, do you have a lock? Do you have a lock? And it's like, yeah, I can get a lock. That's not a problem. But I don't understand, like, why do people keep asking me for a lock? Like, you're supposed to pull the pins out and then you take your tent off. Well, I learned then that, like, people actually steal tents, right? So that was, like, blew my mind. So, yeah, we introduced the lock, and now you have that as an option.
Okay. And, you're talking about going from a 6-hour process to just a few minutes process. So I guess maybe people were afraid that it was too easy to remove, maybe.
Maybe, but the thing of it too is that I think if someone wants to steal something, they're going to figure out a way to steal it.
Absolutely.
So you could get safety hardware, because that's the other weak point, right? Like, someone could just take your bolts. Well, in that instance, if you're that concerned, I recommend purchasing security hardware. There's a lot of that on the aftermarket, or on the hardware market, I should say. I mean, I've thought about it just because the question has come up. There are all kind of like weak points that someone could attack if they wanted to steal your tent. So I just I use the locks myself, just as sort of a half measure. And yeah, like me, when I get home, for the most part, I take my tent off. It's up there now because I don't feel like pulling out the gantry and taking it down and then going through that process. And I'm saying that because we have Overland West coming up. So I have West next week. There's another event that I'll be traveling to. What is it? Great Smoky Mountain Trail Ride. Have you guys heard about this?
I don't know that one. I'm not familiar with it.
This is a Land Cruiser event sponsored by the Southeast Land Cruiser Association, I think. I'm getting that wrong, probably. But
that sounds like a big money event.
What's that?
That sounds like a big money event to me.
Well, my first time attending, they reached out to me, hey, are you interested in participating? I was like, sure. So Hard Impact Designs will be there. We'll have a trail ride named after us, which would be really cool. Hopefully it's not too stressful on my part. And when I get back from that, then I'll probably take my tent down for a little while and, just take the stress off the vehicle.
Okay. How many shows do you try to attend a year?
My schedule has kind of changed since I moved last year. So this year, I think I'll do 4.
Have you partnered with, you would know the brands better than me, but like 4-wheel truck campers or maybe somebody that makes a rooftop tent? Have you partnered with anybody that makes a rooftop tent that they could sell their roof? If somebody buys the rooftop tent, they get your hard impact design brackets as part of the sale?
Not yet. That's one of the
Okay.
things I'm working on is
Okay.
getting, those kind of really what I would like to do. My goal is just to start wholesaling, right? Like it's a great upsale. So
Yeah.
550 or 100 sets. You got to get that like sort of first relationship. So I've been working on that. But then I'm also concerned, quite honestly, right now, just about where things are with tariffs and how people's approach to business right now. It's hard to make decisions. My product is made overseas. So it's like I haven't even talked to my supplier. 145% tariff. It's just ridiculous. I was talking to. Are you all familiar with Dry Fox, Samantha?
No.
I follow her on Instagram, but just recently, she does the towels, I believe, and the recycle, like a lot of recycled materials go into her dry towels, or drying towels.
Correct.
Yeah.
I just mentioned her because she did a great post, or had a couple of posts recently, just explaining how
I saw that
much more expensive her towels will, and so it's like, and on top of that, she's got to pay a whole bunch more money to get them through customs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, well, I shouldn't say on top of that, she's got to get them through customs and pay additional money, and then the cost of her towels will have to increase. And so, I don't know. I'm interested to see how people at Overland Expo here feel next week. Some of the conversations to find out where people's heads are.
How far advanced are you in your orders, Michael? Do you order batches and then they come to you and then you'll have X amount for, say, a few months and then you have to order another set of batches? Is that how it works?
That's correct.
Okay.
Now, and I'll say again, I'm going to talk about this process, right? I went to Overland Expo East when I was working on this. The first prototype that I created came from like my little graph paper sketches that I created. When this project started, I did just that. Printed some graph paper from online, pulled out my protractor, my compass, and my ruler, and made very precise drawings, right, down to the millimeter, because that was how I wanted everything measured out, gave me much more precision, right, of what these drawings to scale should look like. And then I took it to, there was a welder. So at the time, again, I'm still in Atlanta, and every day for years, because I worked downtown the same job, past this welder, never had any reason to interact with them. And so I popped into the shop and was like, hey, can you guys create this for me? And so they did a beautiful freehand weld. It was awesome. The only downside was that each upper bracket was sort of custom to the lower bracket, so they weren't able to be interchanged. But that was just my prototype to kind of get an idea of how the system would work. I made 2 big trips with that, like I said, the Outer Banks trip, and then cross country here to New Mexico to visit my parents and spend some time camping and testing out the setup. I was very happy with that. And during this whole time now, like talking to the guys at the welding shop, can you guys mass produce this in some way, right? Like, and they just weren't able to do that. They didn't have the machinery for it. So now I'm starting the process of trying to find a manufacturer. And there are a lot of steel manufacturers, right? But maybe they produce wrought iron fences or some other thing. I visited a lot of places there in Atlanta area. I cold called people all over the country. And you have people who don't call you back, who tell you that they can do the work, and then they can't do the work because they don't have the machinery. And so I went to East. I found a supplier in Atlanta, and these people were kind of a middleman for a fabricator in North Carolina. And I asked them to do the brackets for me in aluminum, because I thought maybe I could get like some weight savings and save the money with it. Aluminum flexes and bows too much; it wasn't going to work. But that's what I had when I went up to Overland East, right? And when I got up there and people saw it, they were like, "Oh, this is awesome! I could use it to mount my kayak." I was like, "Oh wow, I never thought of that." Like I could use it to mount this and that. And so that was like really cool to see people's ideas of how they would use it. It was at that event that I also met Susan Piper. I don't know if you all know Susan. She started a company, DMOS Collective. She was selling shovels. So she had steel shovels that she was selling, right? And people in the overland community were all over it. A friend of mine introduced me to Susan. This guy grilled me, on my brackets, how they were to be used. These are patent protected, that whole thing, right? He introduced me to Susan, and Susan asked me a bunch of questions, like the idea, and she introduced me to her supplier. So the supplier is overseas, but everyone is familiar with Yakima. Some people are familiar with DMOS Collective. That's the factory where my stuff is manufactured.
Oh, okay.
So you're not going to get a better manufacturer. If I have questions, I call my supplier. They're right up the road here in Utah. I can get video responses. They have quality control on the ground in the factory. So I can get videos of the work that's being done on the products, the response, only because of the time delay. I get responses within a couple of days to any questions that I have. The quality of the work is phenomenal. So all of that to say that work hard, and there's a lot that goes into finding the people that can do the fabrication and get you your stuff in a timely manner and do quality work. I had an instance where I received a shipment and the powder coating on almost half of the brackets was like chipped and it was just messed up. I took a bunch of video and pictures, sent it to my supplier. They replaced the entire order. Well, not the entire order, but everything that was chipped and malfunctioned or malformed in some way. That's great quality service. Great customer service. So you're not just going to throw that away. You'd like to be able to now that's become integrated in your business, and so you can depend on that to get your product and get it to market. So that I think is a frustration that a lot of people are having to confront. It's difficult to make decisions. I did order some brackets before the new administration came into office just to make sure that I had some on hand. I was advised when I first started to order like a lot. So my first order was for like 400, enough for 400 sets. And those were all the double channels. So I have I do still have I don't know, 150 maybe. I don't know. I have to go through my inventory. But as a double channel, I still have a lot of those. Single channel ones, I've had to order those in smaller batches because they were introduced later. So those I don't have as many of. I'm just hoping, like a lot of other people, that some resolution can come so that when I do run out and people want more, we can fill orders.
How long was that process that you just talked about, from having that graph paper measurements to actually having a supplier that could mass produce these and get them into your hands?
I started my project in, what year are we in? July of 2022. And I'm saying that because that was when I submitted my patent. The actual sketches, that was like May of 2022. So 2022, January 23 was when I got the first shipment from my supplier. And that was after I gone through everything of, trying to find people to make it and all kind of other stuff. So I don't know.
Are you still?
Time frame is 6-7 months, maybe
6 or 7 months. Yeah, that's.
When I started this, I was like every day. I was just hustling on it. There was something to be done every day. Some goal that needed to be met. Something that needed some work that needed to be done. So I started the patent myself. I am, like I said, law school graduate, research attorney, all that stuff. And I was looking for a new challenge. I was in a job where I was unhappy and was like, let me see. Part of my story, this is a very spiritual thing for me. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Live Strong bracelets that was my idea. In, I don't know, 1999, 2000, I was working in an after school program in New York. This is where I went to law school. And one day we're in a staff meeting and I had this rubber band. And I just drew some little doodle characters and pictures on it or whatever and handed it to my colleague who was there and we kind of chuckled about it or whatever. And a week later or so, she took a group of students to a museum And when she came back, she gave me a little gift box. In the museum gift shop, they were selling a rubber band with all these like symbols and stuff on it. And we just laughed about it. And then like a year or so later, I see everyone is wearing this bracelet. And I'm like, I had an idea like that. And I just laughed at it. And and I was pissed because I'm like, man. So I promised myself, I was like, made a promise to God. I was like, if you ever give me another idea, like I'll do whatever I like within my power to pursue it. So whatever the outcome. So yeah, like I was in a job where I was just kind of bored and feeling like, I need to challenge myself and try something. And so I started, I'm a pretty decent bean cook. I can make good beans. And so friends of mine at the time were like, oh, you should sell your beans. So I set about learning how to can beans so that I could maybe get into food production. Food production, bringing a food product to market is like very expensive, time. And so I reached a point with that where I was like, man, I'm unsure which direction to go. In the meantime, I'm still camping and hanging out with my buddies. And we had this trip coming up. And that was, like I said, that was like the genesis of this design and everything. And so I was like, one night just in bed praying, like, what can I do? Give me something. And trip comes up, and here we are with Hard Impact Designs and set about with this whole course. And so for me, it was like very much that. Like, here's this idea you've been kind of given. Let's see where it can go. And I was just very busy for that first year, really, just trying to learn more about the industry, what other tent brands are out there, what's kind of the best way for me to market this. And it's just been a real journey. I've learned a lot. I've met a whole ton of people. And yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's been equally tiring too, I'll be honest.
You've been at this for a little while now, a couple of years. Are you still patent pending?
Yes.
It's a process, right?
It is such a process. I believe I'm close to resolution.
Okay.
But, I think the patent office is just, it's overwhelmed, to be quite honest. I don't know if they have enough examiners, and I don't know what logistically happens. But I do understand that there's been an increase in applications. And so when I submitted, it was, I want to say 1 to 2 years, and they increased that. I checked, and it was like 3 to 5 years now.
Okay.
So they have significantly increased the amount of time that it's taken to get through the application process. And, I don't really exactly know what the symptom of that is, but
I feel like maybe you will be close. I know we just had James from the Fit RV on, and he was patent pending with the product that he created. I think it took 4 years, and it's through now. So, and I know it was a process for him as well. So you should be close.
We're just continuing to work it out, and it's a good product. You just have to kind of see what that process is. There's an expertise involved in that, and I, like I said, having gone through law school, wanted to challenge myself, but there are a lot of terms of art involved, and language that you need to employ, form, that needs to be employed, and so. Fortunately, when you're going through that process, especially as a pro se, but even when you have attorneys, like the examiners, once you're able to get in front of that person and get some feedback from them, are really good in terms of kind of going through your application with you, telling you what the shortcomings are, explaining that, and not necessarily, they can't tell you exactly how to prepare it, but you can at least get some guidance or understanding of whether or not you're heading in the right direction.
Oh, that's good to know. I didn't realize that. That's good.
Yeah. Important, because it's a process, and it's like any legal process. I think know and understand what those things are, so you can be effective.
And Michael, how are you gathering feedback from customers, and do you use that feedback, or have you needed to use any feedback? Well, I guess you did, because you talked about the locks. So from the shows, how else do you collect feedback from your customers to make changes?
People can email me. Like I said, Michael D at Hard Impact Designs. At the shows, talk to people a lot. So I think those are kind of the main ways to get in touch with me, really.
Okay.
I'm active on social media, I should say. I'm on Instagram, Hard Impact Designs. I'm on Reddit, but I just am on Reddit. I don't. I enjoy Reddit. Reddit has like a lot of rules in terms of posting and stuff, and so I'm like, I'm not particularly active on there as Hard Impact Designs, but I do. When I'm like engaged in conversation with folks on there, then I'll let them know, hey, you should check out Hard Impact Designs. I guess my Instagram stuff feeds over to Facebook. So if you're on Facebook, you can find me there. And I'm on TikTok as well. So I have a presence there. So if you want to reach out to me on any social media and YouTube, obviously, you can locate me through any of those means. Or you can just Google Hard Impact Designs and you'll find us there too.
Okay. I'll have to check out your YouTube channel. I didn't know that you had a YouTube channel.
Well, I have some posts.
Okay.
Like I was thinking recently, I need to focus a little bit more on it. It's just social media posting and keeping up with that is a lot. Like I say, I work 9 to 5 and then just dealing with whatever personal life issues you have. And so just consistently posting, I try to be consistent with it, but it's a lot to keep up with.
It is. But they are good marketing tools. You reach a large audience and, the algorithm knows what you're posting. So it finds the person that would be interested in that kind of stuff. So I believe it's a good marketing tool anyway.
It's a fantastic marketing tool. And that's one of the things I look at on the website is when people place their orders is where they're finding me, So a lot of people are finding me on Google. And I noticed like some YouTube folks. So that kind of made me reframe and think about where to post. Obviously it's just a formatting issue. So on the one hand, I've got my vertical format for Instagram or TikTok or whatever. And then I've got to get a horizontal format for YouTube. And so I've actually, when I'm out, it's like I'm shooting one thing for IG.
Totally understand that.
I try to shoot the same things in a different format. I actually have another idea for an invention because there's something that I was looking at that I've not seen yet. So I'm like, maybe there's something to be built around this. But you got to film in different formats, and then come back and edit. There's a lot of work. I tell the folks that I know who are, prolific YouTubers and Instagrammers, I'm like, you guys are phenomenal for the way that you're able to keep up with it, because it's just a lot to shoot and edit and get out of your vehicle, put your camera somewhere, drive up, shots it out,
it's a lot.
It's a lot.
And the platforms make it more demanding than it needs to be, because if you're not on it all the time, those platforms, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, they forget about you. They shuffle you down to the bottom and prioritize the ones that are making 3 posts a day type of things.
I have a guy I know. He said he tries to make 6 posts a day.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Wow. Like, man, you're a beast.
And you're running a company at the same time. Plus, you got your 9 to 5 too. So it's I always like the spinning plates analogy. You start, you get something going, you spin another one, and then you got to jump back and start spinning that other one before it falls off the stick.
That's a great analogy. It's so funny that you said that. I don't know how much television you guys watch. There was a commercial that would come on about being a small business owner, and I don't know what bank it is. They want to sell you a credit card or something. I was watching this commercial one evening, and these guys are like, if you're a small business owner, you're like, I don't know, you're head of marketing, you're head of accounting. They ran down a list of things, and it hit me like, yeah, you really are all those things. When you are just self-employed, yeah, that's like a lot, man. That's a lot, So again, more power to the people who are able to consistently post like that, and even the people who don't. Like, I know people who are full-time on the road, and they. Like, so posting for them is their work, but even still, like within that, just to be consistent, right? It just takes a tremendous amount of energy. So
going back to, that you do everything and that you're wearing a lot of hats at the company, what about research and development and testing? Is that on you as well? Like, do you have to test these components to make sure that they're strong enough to handle high wind and pulling force and things? Is that falling on you as well?
It does fall on me, and this is part of like having a great team around me. I had a guy when I was in Georgia. I want to say strength tested, but that's not the total word I want to use. He's structure tested, I guess. Yes.
Okay. I was thinking strength testing though. So yes. Okay.
tested them to destruction, basically, right? Like you want to see what they'll do. Thank you, Kenny. It's a great question. These things have a 3,000-pound dynamic weight load. So that's each connection. So when you employ 4, you've got 12,000 pounds. Like they're super solid. They're not going anywhere. And when it's just, that goes back to the fabrication and the manufacturing, right? Like it's great manufacturing. And then to get them over here and have them tested, you pull random samples out of the bunch that you have and just drop them off with the tester. And he ran through, whatever the percentage is, that I pulled out to be tested. And we went through and destroyed those, and they were consistently up at that mark. So we were satisfied with all that.
Okay. That's impressive. 12,000 pounds.
Yeah, it really is. I was surprised by that. And for me, I think that it's good because, as the business grows, maybe there are opportunities to use different materials, maybe introduce different colors, or increase and decrease the size. And so just knowing that that's the standard that we're starting from, I feel happy with that. And as we move forward, we can keep those sort of in mind.
Okay. And I think you had mentioned earlier that they're powder coated. So the powder coating protects them against weather. If people are out using them for snowboarding and things like that, and they're out in the wet weather or even the sun and stuff like that, they're good to go for a different weather climate.
Correct. When you use them, there's going to be some scratching, obviously, but I haven't had mine. I've been up on the upper bracket for, obviously 2 or 3 years at this point. And there's no rusting. All the hardware is provided with the sets. Now, I have noticed, even though some of the weld nuts that slide into the tent channels, those are stainless, but I have noticed that they will rust. So you'll either want to replace them or maybe employ something else. I don't know. I wouldn't expect them to rust.
Yeah, you wouldn't think being stainless, but
yeah, I've encountered that. Especially, I think the first time I took it out to the beach. Other than that, there's no, the kit itself, the brackets themselves, there's no rust or corrosion or anything like that.
Okay, that's great.
And I don't have any issues with the pins. I've been using the same pins for a couple, 2 or 3 years in all different environments. And I don't have any issues with the pins either. And the pins, too, I think those have a 10,000 pound per square inch, breaking.
Wow.
They're super strong, too.
Nice.
So everything is very solid.
Okay, that's great to hear.
It sounds like when you started, you were mostly targeting the tent, the overland market, but it seems like there's a lot of other uses. Are you currently marketing to any other areas?
I am. Thanks, Sean. That's a great question. I'm learning more and kind of exploring outside of this overland car camping. The term overlanding to me is still very funny. But outside of our community, I'm still exploring other things. My neighbor, in Georgia, bought a set for me. He works in the film industry, he and his wife, and they have friends who are caterers. And he was telling me that he bought this set because a friend of his moves the catering cart around in a van. And so this is an easier way for them to secure their catering cart. They can just come in, the whole thing. So I'm exploring sort of getting ideas. Still within the business, but that's something that I plan to do as I move forward, is to see kind of what other use cases there are, because, I don't know. Focus right now, I think it's just this, because that was the obvious sort of option.
I think that makes sense. Like you said, you're in it. This is what you're doing in your free time. So this, to me, that does make a lot of sense.
I'm even more interested. I'm interested to see how the RV community receives them. I communicated with another gentleman on TikTok, just briefly, because it's hard to sometimes get people's attention. But he was in the RV community as well, and felt like there, would be some need for it. And like I say, I think it's just a question of people seeing the brackets and then thinking, oh yeah, I can use them for whatever. My awning, really. That's an easy one. I don't know. There's a guy that lives around the corner from me. I see he has a Sprinter van with a big rack on top.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what that guy carries up there. But,
the van
used for the hard impact design, the rooftop tent, quick release mount.
Yeah, I see vans with the kayaks. I see vans with snowboards, bikes. Yeah. I don't know if you have something that mounts up for biking or anything like that, but that seems to be the most popular things: is snowboards, biking, and kayaks.
Also, those boards. I forget you used the term earlier, Michael. The boards you use to get out when you're stuck.
The recovery
Oh,
boards,
yeah.
Recovery boards, yeah.
Yeah. It really
Yeah.
is just a matter of like if you whatever you want to mount the upper bracket to. It's just I had an old mount laying around for my recovery boards, and with that I was unhappy because it had a screw that was kind of the reverse. I don't know what you call it, but it dropped down into the crossbar channel, and then the threaded piece sticks up out of that channel, and then you bolt down onto it. But every time I'm like taking stuff off of that, apparently it was putting wear and tear on that screw, that bolt, because after a couple times, bolts started breaking.
Mm-hmm.
And so like dealing with getting that on and off was like kind of a headache. I always had to kind of figure out the width that each needed to be and moving things around inside the channels. And so I just took the mounts and bolted my upper bracket to the underside of those mounts. And now it's the same thing. The lower brackets stay on my rack, and when I want to drop those recovery boards on there, I just drop the upper on top of the lower and stick the pins through. And in fact, this thing is so solid. Last year when I drove up to West, my parents are in southern New Mexico, so I stopped there, because I was coming from Georgia, and I took the recovery boards off of my truck for some reason, and I left them in the garage or whatever for a couple days, and then mounted them back on the truck right the morning that we were getting ready to pull out. I got up to West and stepped up onto the back of the truck to take the recovery boards down and realized that I had not pushed the lock ball pins in. So without the pins inserted and the mounts, like they were, it stayed up there on top of the truck.
That's crazy.
I don't recommend people do that, but that's how solid they fit together. So, well, that reminds me too. The first trip that I made with that with the first prototype, I got those things up there, and one thing I've learned through this process is like your crossbars are not perfectly straight. Right. And when I said like aluminum, I meant like aluminum bends and flex a little bit. So the first set was so precise that when I mounted everything, I couldn't get my pins through because the crossbars weren't perfectly straight. Right. Like those, even though they look like they were at 90-degree angles at the side rails, like what's happening in between there. So it was like I had to drill a couple of the holes out on that lower bracket. Fortunately, it was hollow. And I was able to get my pins in. But that first trip, I could only get 3 pins inserted. So I made that first trip with only 3 pins, and I was like, okay, this is a system that's going to work.
Yeah,
it's solid. So
it's another good test there too.
Yeah, again, I don't recommend. Please insert your pins. It's very solid.
Well, I think that's all of our questions, Michael. Did you have anything to add? Want to add anything that we missed, or anything that we didn't
thank
cover?
you guys. I appreciate the opportunity. It's been great talking to both of you. I look forward to seeing you, Kenny, at Overland West.
Yeah.
And, Sean, I look forward to meeting you one day. And please continue your good work.
We would like to thank Michael for coming on and chatting with us candidly about what it takes to operate his business in these times. I can speak from experience of just how much of a pain it is to attach or adjust a rooftop tent, and how much easier hard impact design can improve the experience from hours to just minutes. That is going to give you more time out exploring rather than getting ready for that exploration. As always, we appreciate you listening and would love for you to leave us a comment, review, or rating on your favorite podcast platform. Any or all of these makes a difference on how listeners can find us. We would also like to thank our sponsors, Battleborn Batteries. They have been powering Sean's and I's adventures for years, and we couldn't imagine RVing without them. Take care all, and we'll be back in about 2 weeks. Looking to get out there and stay out there? Battleborn Batteries lithium-ion batteries are here to power your RV, marine, and off-grid adventures. Designed as an easy drop-in replacement for traditional lead-acid batteries, these reliable solutions have 2 to 3 times the power, charge 5 times faster, are a fifth of the weight, and last 10 times longer. Offered in a variety of models in unique sizes and shapes, ranging from 50 amp hour to a robust 270 amp hour, and backed by a 10-year warranty. Battleborn batteries are built to fit your needs and power your experiences. On the road, on the water, and off the grid, reliable power is here. Check them out at battlebornbatteries.com. With the complexity of all the systems in an RV, I always say it's not if something's going to break, but a matter of when is something going to break. That is why I think an extended warranty for RVs is so important. We first interviewed Wholesale Warranties back in 2019 and immediately became impressed with how their policies worked, such as you can take your RV to any licensed repair shop, including mobile repairs. They also have personalized service plans, making sure you are getting the right policy for your needs. And if you think your RV is too old for a policy, you might be surprised to hear that RVs up to 20 years old can still be approved for a policy. That is more age lenient than most RV parks I've stayed at. Go to wholesalewarranties.com/beyond the wheel or click the link down below in our show notes to get your free quote today.